This week's Black Box Challenge was flower power. Whether it be flower with a W or flower with a U was completely left up to imagination. And thank goodness for that, because when you say flour and food, I think of pasta, I think of pizza, anything with carbs. And I knew for a fact that my folks had a pasta maker of their own, and I thought that'd be a great idea to make some homemade fettuccine, because we have a lot more luck making fettuccine than actual spaghetti. And once I thought of what type of pasta I like to have at a restaurant, I usually like to have it with either sausage or meatballs, and since we had some frozen ground beef, that just worked out perfectly. And then when I thought of both of those things, I immediately thought of the Bella Notte sequence from Lady and the Tramp, which is easily the best moment in the movie, one of the best love sequences, one of the best food sequences of all time. And I thought, I have to set this montage to Bella Notte to see how it translates out. And it translated a hell of a lot better than the music I just showed you in the previous montage. But you know how Disney and YouTube are in terms of copyrights, and I will say this. Disney seeing you use their footage, they really couldn't give two shits about that. They do give two shits, however, about you using their music, especially in full, which I did. So I kind of bought myself that crappy situation, but I am happy to say that the Bellanotte version of the pasta and meatballs I just showed you still exists. Only my friends, family, and my coworkers are the only ones who will ever be able to see it, but I still feel proud of it either way. And when I thought of making homemade pasta, I didn't think it was going to be as stressful as it actually was, just because we've done it a couple times before, and you'd think you've done it a couple times, you've done it 1,000, but not the case with homemade pasta. I was originally going to do it by hand, form the flour into like a little volcano, pour the eggs, the olive oil, the salt in there, and then just crumple it up together on a very floured top, which would have been completely fine for me personally, but my folks have a lot more experience putting the pasta dough in that bread maker that I showed you, and not gonna lie, I did take the easy way out on that just because I've come close to melting down like once or twice over the course of making these videos, just because of such a pain in the ass some of these challenges have been. Like, I know nothing about using chocolate as an ingredient when I made those chocolate truffles. I hate chocolate. I have never worked with it before, and as I said before in that previous video, my first chocolate fucking seized on me, and that just gave me an anxiety attack for hours that day. Plus, my family heard some bad news that day too, so that part didn't really help either. It was insufferable, but it was just a lesson to show that no matter how many times you do it, you still gotta pay super close attention to every single detail, and that's exactly what we did here. The whole thing about forming the dough together in the bread maker, that part was ridiculously easy. We had never gotten the entire thing out without anything sticking in the bowl, so that part was really nice. But after a half hour of proofing, it was still a little too wet, and there were actually some sequences of me rolling out the dough in the machine that didn't make the cut, not just because I filmed it in a really crappy position where our heads and our arms were in the way of filming, like when I poured the eggs into my meatballs. That was what I was pouring out of that ramekin, but somehow that blocked the camera. I'm not entirely sure how. But not only did the pasta cuts make it not into this video just because of how much we obscured it, it was mostly because it hadn't occurred to me that I had to flour it again and again after each single time. You roll it out through the machine, and then you fold it in thirds, and as you're folding it in thirds, you're putting flour all over it just to make sure that it absorbs everything so that it doesn't get too sticky, which is super important with that machine because you can't get it wet in order to clean it out, which I discovered the hard way cleaning up afterwards, but what are you going to do? But you know what? In the end, it all worked out, and after a lot more trial and effort putting the dough through that machine, we ended up getting some fantastic looking fettuccine. We dried it on a spinning wheel that my mom uses to ravel her yarn, which I forgot we had because the only times I remember is when she's using it, and it's incredibly loud and squeaky whenever she uses it, but it still came in handy. And having spent so many months at home watching cooking shows like Bobby Flay and The Chef Show, I did learn a very special trick about cooking pasta when you're using tomato sauce or Alfredo like we did here, or even just basic olive oil like with pasta aglio olio from Chef. It's really important to save the pasta water once you're straining it, because once you have the dried pasta, you pour it in the sauce, you pour in the pasta water along with it so that the sauce will absorb so much better into the noodles, and the salt and pepper will really stand out a hell of a lot more, which is exactly what happened here. And if you want to know what I put in my homemade meatballs, I put granulated onion powder, some pureed garlic because I didn't have garlic powder, some parsley and Italian seasoning, some salt and pepper, of course, because you can't make anything without salt and pepper, some Frank's cayenne powder, which is one of my favorite things to use throughout my house. I fucking love it. I was going to use some mozzarella cheese that we had from the chicken parm waffle, but we ran out. I can't believe we ran out. That shit was really good, but then again, if it was that good, no wonder. And I was going to use cheese, but I ended up just using generic Parmesan out of a can and 2 eggs, because when you're making meatballs, it's not like a burger where everything holds in all at once. In fact, when you're making burgers, you need to put stuff like Dijon mustard in order to maintain the texture as it's cooking. With meatballs, the eggs are like the thing that keeps everything together. And at first I didn't think that was going to be the case. I thought it was going to make the beef a little more soggy, but it ended up working. And I gotta say, I didn't think I was going to make that big of meatballs until my mom handed me her ice cream scooper, but worked out perfectly. We all agreed that pasta was top-notch stuff, and there was only 1 meatball left. So in the end, it all worked out pretty good. Thanks as always, guys, for sitting through my rambling about the dish. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of the pasta and meatballs. Let me know what your other favorite food sequences other than Bella Notte from Lady and the Tramp, because that's not only one of my favorites, if you've ever seen it as a kid, it's probably the first food sequence that you fell in love with. So let me know any other examples that you enjoy. Be sure to stay tuned for more classic movie reviews, as well as my upcoming review tomorrow of Disney Plus's Hamilton. Look forward to that, and be sure to like and subscribe. Take care.